On behalf of iHub Government of Gujarat and Department of Higher and Technical Education, I would like to welcome all the dignitaries today who are participating in this special webinar. I welcome and hearty congratulations to the entire team of iHub for successful Bhumi Pujan this week. And now we have an amazing speaker, policymaker, thought leader who happens to be our chairperson of the advisory council at iHub, Dr. R. Mashelkar. We got a lot of requests since a lot of days to have him to directly talk to all of you. But today is the day when we have Dr. Mashelkar with us. We have Principal Secretary Anju Sharma Madam, who is the chairperson of iHub, who is driving the entire student startup and innovation movement. We have Sri Dr. Himanshu Pandya, the Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University and Chief Mentor of iHub. We also have Sri M. Nagarajan, Commissioner of Higher Education and Honorary Executive Director of iHub, Government of Gujarat. So it's a great occasion to have Dr. Mashelkar, who is guiding us, giving us vision to take these institutions to new height. And the student startup and innovation policy, we started as an intervention in Government of Gujarat, has now become a large movement, not only in the state of Gujarat, but also in the whole country. At this outset, I will introduce Dr. Mashelkar to all of the audience who are listening all across the 80 universities in the state of Gujarat, all startups, innovators, entrepreneurs, industry persons, vice chancellors, principals, and all stakeholders in the ecosystem. Dr. Mashelkar is National Research Professor, who was the longest serving Director General of Council of Science and Industrial Research from 1995 to 2006. And that was the time when CSIR actually transformed from a public research laboratory to one corporation of professional excellence. He was also the chairperson of National Innovation Foundation since the beginning to the longest time, from 2000 to 2018, where he championed the movement of grassroots innovation in the country. He was the president of Indian National Science Academy from 2004 to 2006, and also the president of Global Research Alliance 2007 to 2018. 42 universities from around the world have honored him with honorary doctorates, which includes University of London, Salford, Pretoria, Wisconsin, Swinburne, Monash, and Delhi University. Dr. Mashelkar has many firsts to his credit. He was the first Indian to win the most prestigious TWA's Lenovo Science Prize 2018, which is considered as a mini Nobel Prize for developing world scientists. First Indian from India to be elected as Fellow of US National Academy of Inventors in 2017. First Asian scientist to win the Business Week Award for Star of Asia at the hands of George Bush Sr., the former President of the United States of America. And the first and only scientist to win the J.R.D. Tata Corporate Leadership Award 1998 and so forth. He is only the third Indian engineer to have been elected as the Fellow of Royal Society in London since 1660. 7 Indian scientists who have been elected as Foreign Fellow of US National Academy of Science since 1863, and 7th Indian to have been elected as Foreign Associate of American Academy of Arts and Science since 1780. Dr. Mashelkar has been on the board of directors of India's most reputed companies, which includes Reliance Industries Limited, to Tata Motors Limited, to Hindustan Unilever. In the post-liberalized India, Dr. Mashelkar has played a critical role in shaping India's science, technology, and innovation policies. He was a member of the Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, set up by successive governments for 30 years in this nation. The President of India honored Dr. Mashelkar with Padma Shri in 1991, with Padma Bhushan in 2000, and Padma Vibhushan in 2014, 3 of the highest civilian awards of Government of India. Dr. Mashelkar, we heartily welcome you to this special session, and it is a privilege to have you today to interact with all the students, young people, innovators, startups in the state of Gujarat. Thank you, sir, for finding time to join with us. I will now request Dr. Himanshu Pandya, Vice Chancellor, Gujarat University and Chief Mentor iHub, to share his initial remark before we start the conversation.
Good morning. Namaskar to one and all. It's been a pleasure to welcome such a stalwart, such a fatherly figure who is always there to support our initiatives. Like Hiranmay mentioned, he has vast sheet of experience, which is enlightening thousands and thousands of new innovators and young scientists and researchers across the globe. Welcome, sir. Welcome to iHub. This is a government of Gujarat enterprise, directly working under the guidance of government. And I'm happy to share with you, sir, this is the first enterprise where you won't feel a government setup kind of a thing. It is totally professionally working establishment. It is in the middle of the city. We are sitting in the heart of Ahmedabad, which is a heritage city awarded by UNESCO. This particular iHub is an innovation hub which deals with the student startup and innovation policy. With that, they are also coordinating 17 flagship program. Under this, I can give you some examples like Startup Engage. Under this, we call young innovators and enterprises who have done remarkable journey in their excellence. We call them on board. We allow them to interact with the young innovators. They interact with them and they give answers to their questions. Another program we have is a Mind to Market, where we call students with innovative ideas who have some novelties in their approaches. We call them, we encourage them, we give them mentorship, and we try to accommodate them in the product making, and then we launch them to the market. So another program is Startup Manak, where we are rating the activities of startup entrepreneurship in the state. The another program is Startup Runway. If somebody is having excellent idea and which is a need of a time, we give them extraordinary boost, we give them extraordinary support, and we allow them to go directly to the market. More than 17 such programs we are coordinating here at the iHub, and all the top officials, including Madam Anju Sharma, Nagarajan sir, myself, Hiranmay, we all are here 24/7 to support our young innovators. This is not the incubator only. It is a full-fledged, all sort of support you can seek at one juncture, one point, and that is iHub. If you are looking for IP mentorship, if you are looking for funding, if you are looking for market assessment, if you are looking for some company establishment, some trademarking, everything is available to this particular campus. So in a way, it's a one-stop solution for all the queries what a young innovators are having. We know, sir, you're very busy. You took time to be with us and to talk to our young innovators. And this is the establishment who is always there with your blessings. Whenever we ask support from you, your blessings are always there. You have never looked at the time, and you have encouraged us like anything. And I'm sure that today's conversation will be also a very big boost and boon to the students and young innovators in the state of Gujarat. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mashelkar. So, as we discussed to make this conversation live, what I did is I went through 3 of your famous books. I had privilege to work under the guidance before, and I picked up few questions which should be very interesting to all the innovators. And we will post these questions and try to learn from you. So I request Nagarajan sir to put forward the first set of questions that we want to hear from you directly so that all of us can get inspired.
Thank you, Hiranmay. I think it's a privilege to pick the top brain in the country on certain things of interest to for the innovation community in Gujarat. As iHub is trying to be not just an incubator, but an ecosystem orchestrator, a catalyst, and to provide a moral leadership into the innovation wave that is happening in Gujarat. And we are catching the students very young. At 17 years of age, we are providing them a sandbox for innovation, pathway from mind to market, and to try out their ideas with the support of mentors facilitated by iHub and inspired and advised by top minds like our guest speaker today, Dr. Mashelkar. So, sir, you have always been a champion of innovation. So what, according to you, is the best definition of innovation? Because now I think we should start from the basics.
Well, first of all, I'm grateful to you all for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all. Madam Anju Sharma, I remember long ago we talked about getting involved with iHub. I still remember our very first meeting in which we laid out, let's say, the future vision, future path. And just now, what we have heard in terms of the progress that you have made is terrific. Well, the I itself is innovation. I itself is inspiration. I itself is imagination. And they're all constituents of innovation. Innovation is all about, very simply, doing things differently to make a difference. As simple as that, basically. Now, there are many formal definitions. The one that I like most is innovation is a successful exploitation of a new idea in practice. Now, every word is important in this. New idea. Now, it could be new to the world. It could be new to the nation. It could be new to an institution. It could be new to an industrial enterprise. The second is, when I say in practice would mean its actual application in society. If you're doing something in agriculture, then it will be in the agriculture field. If you're doing something for industry, it will be in industry. So that is practice. The next one is successful. What do you mean by successful exploitation? I would say there are three ingredients of success. The first is that you have to do it with speed. Second is scale. And third is sustainability. If any one of these are missing, then I would say that we should question whether it has been successful. Take, for example, speed. All right. You have to run very fast and faster than your competitor, because otherwise your competitor will sort of take you over. Okay. That means when you mentioned about mind to marketplace, how quickly can you convert that journey? You know. The second is the scale. The scale is always dependent upon the addressable market. For example, if you are developing a new drug for COVID, for example, as you can see, so many people are affected. So the market is really billions of people. For tuberculosis, it will be smaller. For some special diseases, it will be even smaller. So that is the kind of scale that one talks about. And finally, one has to talk about sustainability. Is it sustainable? You can put a product in the market or a service, but it may not sustain, it may not last. And it will depend upon several factors. The first, the economic one. You know, you can't put a product and say, I will depend on government subsidy. Government change, subsidies go, and then you collapse. So it is irrespective of that, it has to have a business model. The second is environmental. You know, society will be unforgiving if your product or service is not green. It should not be creating carbon footprint. We all know about the climate change challenges, etc. So anything that we do, we must ask ourselves, what is the imprint on the environment? So it has to be good and green, okay? And the other one has to be that it has to be acceptable to the society. You know, many technologies are there where people have doubts. For example, you take GM food, okay? There are many countries where for genetically modified food, there are sort of question marks. So therefore, I would say innovation is a successful exploitation of a new idea. In practice is a good definition along with this particular explanation, I would say.
Thank you, sir. I think successful exploitation and putting it on ground practice is the key point that we are taking from this explanation.
Absolutely.
Sir, I want to start the next one by asking the most important challenge that is all in our minds right now, which is the COVID situation. Yeah. Now, again, we are in the unlock mode and we are rebuilding. So what is the role of innovation in rebuilding our nation post-COVID, and what are your views in this new normal? Sir?
Yeah, I would say that innovation is going to be the key for not only survival, but success. It is very obvious. You know, for example, when the pandemic hit us, we had no idea about the new virus, coronavirus, okay, COVID-19. We did not know how to detect it. Diagnosis, for example, was missing. You know, we were not having any drugs or any therapeutics, or we did not have any vaccines, for example. Okay. If you look at personal protection equipment, 70% of that we were importing, for example. We were dependent upon the rest of the world. If you look at ventilators, similar was basically the case. In terms of tracing and tracking, we did not have the technology. Now, frankly, all these challenges you cannot actually deal with if you don't take recourse to science and technology. Science becomes your tool for survival. So I always say science, technology, and innovation. Science that solves, technology that transforms, and innovation that impacts. They all have to go together, science, technology, and innovation. And I'm very proud to say, like our Honorable Prime Minister from the Red Fort very proudly said what India has been able to do. For example, personal protection equipment, 70% we are importing. Now, actually, we produce so much that not only are we able to take care of our own needs, we are exporting. Basically, diagnostics, for example. If you see, I'm speaking about Pune. After the pandemic hit, within 6 weeks, there was this MyLab, which came up with the sort of RT-PCR kit within 6 weeks. We're starting from nowhere, looking at the genome sequence. Now, IIT Delhi has developed its own kit. IGIB, Institute of Genomics Integrative Biology, they've developed a paper strip kind of a test kit. The others have developed. If you look at, for example, vaccines, as the Honorable Prime Minister very proudly said, yes, there are 3 companies. I mean, you look at Bharat Biotech, they have one, Zydus has another one, basically, and the whole world is looking at India for manufacture of vaccines. For example, right here in Pune, Serum Institute, as you probably know, if you look at vaccines for young children, basically, the initial shots that you give, 1 out of 3 children in the world actually uses vaccine from India. So the manufacture of that. You look at ventilators, for example. Okay, we are all importing that. And I remember Marico Innovation Foundation came up with Harsh Mariwala. He has a big heart. And we had Amit Chandra. They came together, put a 2.5 crore worth prize, grand challenge. We always complain about industry not coming forward, etc. This is a brilliant example. And I remember my chairing the committee, basically, to select the best innovations, PPE as well as ventilators. And it is amazing what they have been able to come up with, the award winners. Because there is what are called as Indian conditions, under which those ventilators have to work. For example, rural villages, they don't have electricity. How do you have something which can work without electricity? There are interruptions. And for 3 hours, you will not have electricity. Despite that, it has to work, for example. There may not be medical oxygen pipeline. Okay, so all that you have is in air, and from that you have to create oxygen and it has to work. So it is not about getting ventilators that work in the most sophisticated world. It has to work in India, and we came out within. So the point I'm trying to make is that your question is absolutely right. Basically, I want to assure everyone who is listening that India is very capable of developing this, and we are strong in science, technology, and innovation comparable to anyone else, I would say.
Excellent, sir. The student startup and innovation policy, which is the policy that is also driving the HiHub framework, is also focusing on innovation. And in fact, I'm happy to share that in the last 2.5 years, almost 700 patents have been filed by our students itself. So that shows that if you provide the right policy framework and give some fillip, the innovation quotient of our country is only going to increase. So in this regard, sir, you have many times told that we should move away from this jugaad mindset and look at innovation as a more sustainable and value-oriented one. So we would like to know from you on this thought, sir.
Yeah, well, what has happened is that the image about India around the world is that it's a Jugaadu nation. I don't like that, very frankly. Because Jugaad, it means just fixing it. It's a fix-it approach. Something is broken, you quickly fix it. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's a kind of a sort of a bot job. Okay? And it's a temporary solution to sort of a problem. Many times not taking care of the aesthetics, not taking care of the safety, not taking care of the environmental impact, etc., etc. Now that is not done. You have heard about these Jugaad vehicles, for example. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, one collapsed and several people died as a result of that because it was a kind of a quick fix. That is not my image of India, all right? We have to move to what is called as a systematic innovation. How do we move, as you said, mind to marketplace, from idea to impact, by using. Now, why does Jugaad come in? Jugaad comes in because people are poor and they start looking around and seeing what they have in hand and try to sort of play around it. There is nothing wrong in that. But what I'm saying is that it has to be backed up by systematic innovation so that the future safety, future standards, etc. are taken care of. You create a product which doesn't have safety standard, you are endangering the lives of people who will be actually using it. That we cannot basically do. And the other thing I would say that this mending approach or make-do approach is a kind of a mindset. We have a problem, we have to sort of fix it somehow. That should not be the case. And we always talk about making high technology working for the rich, making low technology work for the poor. My dream for India is always making high technology work for the poor. I think that is sort of the most important thing. And I will later on give you some examples on how that actually can be done. So it has to be a completely different approach. My India of 21st century should not be one which is a Jugaadu nation, but which excels in systematic innovation.
Wonderful, sir. I think, sir, when we talk about the people for whom we need to make an innovation, you have also told about this Gandhian engineering, which is something very, very interesting concept looks like. And you talked about this in Australia, and now it is gaining a lot of attention. And what is this? Would you like to highlight about the idea of Gandhi to Gandhian engineering?
Yeah, I'm very happy you asked this question. This is my favorite question, by the way. The reason is the following. As people say, if in 20th century, if there was a voting that was taken, was the greatest person born who lived in the 20th century, we would say Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, not only as a proud Indian, but the whole world would say that. So in 21st century, what is going to be most important, according to me, is Gandhian engineering. Okay. Now, what is Gandhian engineering? Yeah, you are right. In Australia, I gave this talk. It was in 2008, and I was asked to give this talk in Canberra. I was elected to the Australian Academy of Science. I was the first Indian, by the way, to have been elected to that ATSE, as it is called, Australian Technology, Science, Engineering Academy. And they wanted me to talk on innovation. Now, I didn't want to read a textbook like you have, or books that you have behind me. I always like to talk from book of my life, my experiences, my aspirations. So I gave the title of Gandhian engineering. That itself surprised them, because they had heard about mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical engineering. What is Gandhian engineering? So I told them about two tenets of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. One was, he said, your science, you must make it work for the poorest of the poor. The second was, he said, there is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. Okay? What it means is that your resources are exhaustible, and therefore you must preserve them for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so on and so forth. So what you must do is to get more from less, basically. That means from the same resource, you must get more. For what? For more and more people. Not only the current people on the earth, but also the future generation. So it became more from less for more, MLM, as it was called. And that more from less for more just stuck. I mean, I remember 2008, I gave the talk. And in 2010, C.K. Prahlad and I wrote a paper in Harvard Business Review. Okay? It was called Innovation's Holy Grail, more from less for more. and how even businesses could learn from Gandhian engineering in terms of getting more from less for more. Because we always talk about businesses making a lot of profit. They said do well and then do good. That means you make a lot of money, and then you sort of create a foundation or a trust. But there is an alternative, which is doing well by doing good. By doing good means doing good itself is a kind of a sort of a business, So Gandhian engineering teaches us that. How do you do a public good? Basically, while you are doing sort of a private good. So this terminology has become sort of very popular, I must say, around the world. And I'm very proud of this fact, because if you want to create a better world, I think this is the way to go.
Sir, this is the wonderful way to look at the Gandhian philosophy, that Gandhiji was never against the engineering or technology. He was also there to encourage us for the best for the society. With this, I would like to ask you, sir, when you talk of products developed for the society with the affordability, and now things have moved to the ultra affordability, where you should not lose the quality or the excellence of the work. So how one can manage between two? Because our young innovators, they are always in hurry. They want to perform fast, they want to deliver fast. But when you go for affordability factor, they always lose the excellence or the context of the product. And looking at the market demand, how they can balance between two. And I think what you have launched, the Anjani Mashalkar Inclusive Award, that is the best example to understand how we can balance between the product quality and the excellence of the affordability.
Yes. I started this award in the name of my mother. This is the 10th year of the award, by the way. And it's very interesting. This is not for just best practice. It is for next practice. Okay? Because I'm not a great believer in best practice. Best practice means you are copying somebody's practice. Okay? What you have to do is to go beyond and create something which is sort of for the future, which others will follow it. I think we have to develop that. So here, this award is inclusive innovation. Inclusive innovation means including the excluded, the poorest of the poor. Okay, and I'll give you examples of that, where you ask what are the needs of the poor, and then you create products, but making use of high technology. Okay, like I said, not jugaad. For example, there was this young man, Mishkil Ingawale, who got the award. What he found was that when he went to villages, he found that women were dying, because of anemia. And why? Because their low levels of hemoglobin in the blood were not detected. Why? Because they're scared to give the blood, or they said, this is my blood, I will not give, and so on. So they were not being tested. So he said, why take the blood out? Do it without sort of touching it. So he created a device, which you can just touch, and what is your hemoglobin content. You can just imagine. Okay. Now what he did was that he made use of high technology. The high technology had plethysmography, photoplethysmography, spectrophotometry, photon scattering. There was a sophisticated software that he developed. And that high technology he made work for the poor, so that you could do the blood testing for just 5 rupees per. Then there was another Rahul Rastogi. What he did was that his father had issue on the heart. So he had to be taken to the hospital for ECG. And as you know, ECG, when you take, you lie down, and then there are leads that are put, nurses, and it takes half an hour and all that, etc. He said, why? And he created something like this. This is not it, but like this, where you put your 2 thumbs for 15 seconds, and there is a sensor. This is your heart. You put it here, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, above, and 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay? And the device is connected via internet to anybody's smartphone, for example. So supposing, just imagine, there's an old woman in a village, and she has a pain, and she has to be, subjected to ECG. Either you will put her on the scooter or in a bullock cart and take her. No, you don't have to. From there itself, the best ECG expert in the country can have it if you have downloaded that thing. Cost for just ECG, 10 rupees per ECG. Not 100, 500 rupees at all, basically. Same thing about breast cancer, for example. All right, you have this painful mammography and so on and so forth, expensive tests. No, he created $1. Just within $1, you have a non-invasive device which you can basically make. So this Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award is making high technology work for the poor and not just affordable, extremely affordable. You can't say 10% lower, I'm giving you a concession. It has to be 10 times. It has to be 100 times lower. Like I said, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, etc., etc. You know, that is the extreme affordability. And that requires great thinking, by the way. That's even a sort of bigger challenge than many of these big high-tech companies. And I'm very proud that, and these are all young people, by the way, 25 to 30, who have created that. That is the power that we have.
So this is the one idea that you have some innovation which is helpful to your society and to the last person sitting in the village. Simultaneously, you can use the same technology to some other country and you can earn money, where you can bring Lakshmi and Saraswati together. And I think you are the best example who is having this combination with you, that the Lakshmi ji and Saraswati ji both are at your place. So I would like to hear a few more examples on such idea to enlighten our innovators, sir.
Yeah. Well, in 1998, I gave a talk. It was called Economics of Knowledge. Economics of Knowledge. This was C.D. Deshmukh Memorial Lecture, which I gave in India International Center. And if you look at my book, Reinventing India, that lecture is sort of printed there. And there I've sort of talked about these ideas of moving from Saraswati to Lakshmi, because we do Saraswati Puja on one day and Lakshmi Puja on another day. Route from Saraswati to Lakshmi, we are not seen. But I have seen the academics, since you are the Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University, there are three separate things: education, research, and innovation. Education disseminates known knowledge. Research creates new knowledge. Innovation converts knowledge into wealth and social good. That is where Saraswati and Lakshmi actually get sort of created. Okay. So the first two, education and research, where you give money and create knowledge out of it. Whereas the last one, innovation, is where you have knowledge and you create money. You saw the link, actually. So the greatest universities around the world have that. Like, I was the chairman of Reliance Innovation Council, okay? And we had Nobel laureates on that, like George Whiteside, so Nobel laureate from Harvard University. He's the highest cited scientist in the world, H-index of something like 180 plus. If you cross 100, you are supposed to be doing a miracle, 180 plus. So Saraswati at the highest level. But Lakshmi, the startups that he had, that he founded, the market cap is $30 billion plus, $30 billion. So Saraswati and Lakshmi coexisting, right? Highest level of knowledge creation as well as highest level of wealth creation. That is mine. And the last point I want to make is that we have to realize, if you look at the market cap, the top companies, 2009, who were the top two companies? PetroChina and ExxonMobil. Okay. 10 years later, who are the top two companies? Apple and Microsoft. The first two companies were dealing with oil, gone. These two companies, Microsoft and Apple, are dealing with knowledge, information, and they are the top two, basically. And as we have seen the rise of Jio, for example, as a technology platform, from where it has moved to sort of where. So I think this connection of Saraswati to Lakshmi is very critical.
So wonderful, sir. This is a big example and encouragement for all the institutions working in the area of academics to have three fundamentals in mind: how we can educate people, how we can encourage them for the research, and how we can incorporate this education and research into innovation, and we can earn some good revenue to have Lakshmi ji and Saraswati ji at one place. Wonderful, sir. One more question I have: wherever you have worked as a chairperson or as a president or as a head of the institution, that institution has excelled a lot. So a lot of viewers are there watching you and listening you right now. They are also heading some institutions. They are also occupying some important spaces. So how would you manage this work profile, the complete engagement with the government and policy making, and establishing an institution and taking to the heights? How you can manage all these things for the benefit of the viewers, please?
Oh, it's very simple. You know, in life of an individual or an institution, there is always a big purpose. Okay? And the three key words are purpose, perseverance, and passion. Remember, purpose, perseverance, and passion. Perseverance is very important in order to meet the purpose. I always say it is too early to quit. Quitters are never winners, and winners are never quitters. Okay? And passion. Passion is very important. You know, I always talk about young people and say you must have three qualities: innovation up here, passion in the belly, and compassion in the heart. Empathy, not just sympathy. Empathy and compassion, which is a sort of a high level. And if you have that, you can achieve it. That is one. Secondly, hard work. Basically, one of the I want to tell particularly young people, like instant coffee, there is no instant success. You know, they are used to wanting, it is never like that. I'm 77 now, but in my life, I've done 24/7, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, till I will take. And the other thing that I've seen in my life is that you can't keep on knocking on the doors of opportunity. They don't open many times. Then you create your own doors of opportunity. You get the point, basically. So I think these are sort of fundamental attributes which makes sort of things happen. And finally, most important is building trust, basically. Because we don't have trust, there are rules, regulations, etc., etc. That hampers your productivity, that hampers your efficiency. So how do you build a trust? For example, within iHub, I was very happy to hear you are developing. Anju Sharma Madam was telling us before we started about how she's building that new smell, this thing where people love each other, trust each other, work together, and so on and so forth. All that becomes very important. So whether I was leading National Chemical Laboratory, whether I was leading CSR with 40 labs, 20,000 people, or whether I was leading Global Research Alliance, which is like CSR India, CSR Australia, CSR South Africa, Fraunhofer Gesellschaft Germany, VTT Finland, VTI Denmark, TNO Netherlands, 60,000 scientists. Everywhere these fundamental 4 or 5 principles, I must say, worked.
Sir, I would like to ask you one question. You are chairing our advisory board of iHub. So what is your now vision about iHub, and how would you like iHub to grow and to make a difference? Of course, we've been having you on board all these years, all these months, but now with having covered this much journey, what do you think is the future track for iHub?
Yeah, as far as iHub is concerned, I'll tell you, you are in a great state called Gujarat, very frankly. I respect Gujarat enormously for a variety of things, basically. There is something special about Gujarat. You are not just a manufacturing hub, you're a trade hub, for example. You must become a technology hub now, basically. Moving from trade to technology is sort of one. The second is, if you see, you have a lot of strengths up there in Gujarat, whether it is chemicals, whether it's petrochemicals. Jamnagar refinery is a wonder of the world, as a matter of fact. Drugs, textiles. You look at global healthcare companies, for example. You are some of the best in the world. And now, if you see post-COVID, what is going to go the fastest? The global healthcare companies are going to go the fastest. So I would say that you have it all going for you. That's number one. You have to make use of these strengths. The most important part, I would say, is that your companies in Gujarat, for example, have to realize the power of the startups. Startups are going to be the future providers of talent and technology. Okay? As you must have seen Mukesh Bhai's speech as a chairman of Reliance in AGM, where he had a heavy emphasis on startups. In fact, if you look at, there is what is called as Gen X Ventures for accelerating the startups. It's a corporate accelerator. I happen to be associated with it. And if you just see the kind of talent and technology as a resource that Reliance is using, in fact, in the last 18 months, they have acquired some 18 sort of startups because they look at them as a kind of a source. In fact, if you saw in the AGM, there was a demonstration of virtual reality and mixed reality by Akash and Isha, But if you go through the basics, you will find that technology access came from a startup, so as to say. So I think our big companies in Gujarat also must realize that iHub is going to be the provider of talent and technology for them. And the last point I'd like to make is the aspiration. Those aspirations have to be kept always high of iHub. The good news I'll give you is that is the case as far as our young people are concerned. I was interacting with some young people on the other day, startup community only, and I want to narrate that story. So I was telling them, I always sell India, as you know. So I was talking about the power of higher education, in India. So I said, look at Microsoft. Satya Nadella is a product of higher education in India. Look at Sundar Pichai. Google CEO is a product of higher education in India. So I said, your aspiration should be that. Anjuji, what happened was that they turned to me, one of the young boys, and he said, sir, I don't think you have an idea about what we are thinking. You are completely with. I said, what? Then he said, sir, your generation, your only aspiration was to go to US somehow. The second generation, not only to go to US, but get a job in Microsoft, job in Google. The next generation, go to US, go to Microsoft, and become CEO. He said, that is not our aspiration. Our aspiration is to create our own Microsoft, our own Google here in India. Now, that has to be the aspiration of iHub, so as to say. All right? So we don't want to be a copying nation. We want to be a nation which actually leads, and iHub should show the way. That's why the I in iHub should not stand for imitation. It should not stand for inhibition. It must stand for innovation in capital letters. I would say that would be my aspiration for iHub.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much for elaborating the broad vision. I will pick a quick couple questions. Sir, many people, and you are known for that, many people anecdotes you as the Maharana Pratap of Haldi Ghati battle, when the turmeric patent was being battled for US and India. And I remember reading your book where you say that outrightly, when you came across this, you were giving a lecture in Delhi and you told, we will go and fight for it. And then, the other officers from Minister of External Affairs and the other says that, we should have consultation, we should have discussion, because this might have consequences of foreign licenses. And then you go on saying that I prefer giving priority to heart than head. So you have been a person who always take decision, dil se. So how do you take that on an institution perspective or startups perspective? How do we give more priority to heart than head? And would you like to explain that episode, how that thing happened, the Haldi Ghati battle?
Yeah. Well, as you know, that has become a history now, that particular battle, because our traditional knowledge, there were wrong patents that were being taken. And when you say take a patent, you claim a right on something which is ours, basically, which is wrong, So somebody had to fight it, and I said, I will do that. So there is an interesting story. In the morning, I was reading Times of India, And there was this reporter called N. Suresh, I still remember his name. And he actually reported that wound healing properties of turmeric, there was a patent that was taken in the US. I said, come on, my grandmother knows it, my grandmother's grandmother knows it. What's new about that? There is no novelty, no non-obviousness, which are the basic requirements. So in the evening, I was giving this lecture, Hussain Zahir Memorial Lecture, and P.N. Haksar, the former Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister, was chairing. I still remember that. And I just declared I'm going to fight it. Now, I did something very dangerous, very frankly. And Anju will realize it because Anju is an IAS. What happens is, when you make such big announcement, you have to go through the minister, take his permission, have the government sort of endorse it. I didn't do that. What happened was that I was Director General of CSIR, so I had all the freedom in the world. But I was also Secretary to Government of India. I had lost all that freedom in terms of without government, I can't move. But I forgot that I'm the sort of secretary, and I took a call from the heart. कि ये गलत है, इसको ठीक करना है. That's it. And of course, the country, trusted me. And so what I have seen is that I always go by my heart. Even while coming back, by the way, I must tell you how I came back. And I want to tell this to young people because many times, we start calculating the cost benefit. Agar ye job liya to iska ye hai, kitna, iska kitna. You don't do that. You take a call from the heart. I remember I was doing very well in England, by the way. Okay. And Dr. Naiduma, the then Director General, came to UK. And I was called to meet him in Savoy Hotel, And when I went, of course, I had my own house, I had a car, etc. I was well settled on my career path. And then he said, when you become old, you will come back to India. Come now. I was barely 32 at that time. Country needs you, basically. And, he painted a picture about what could happen if young people came, basically. And I said, yes. I didn't do calculation. I didn't even ask him how much pay I will get, basically. Of course, I got 2,100 rupees per month. That's a different matter. But the basic point was that I took a call from here. And I would do it again. And I would do it again and again. So my suggestion to my young people is that go by what your heart tells you. That's most important.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, this is very exciting for all entrepreneurs and innovators also. Sir, Honorable Prime Minister is now talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, more self-reliance, and he has already talked about Make in India and Startup India. You also highlight
your question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You can hear me. I will answer that. I think you asked about the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Yeah, I totally endorse. I think Prime Minister, as usual, in his inspiring leadership, has given us a clarion call. Self-reliant Bharat, Swayambhurna, self-reliant India. I totally endorse it, and I think we as a nation must sort of work on that. But I would say that it's not just Make in India. It is actually Make in India, but invent in India. That's most important. You get my point? And if you don't do that, you just become an assembler, then you will fall out. I think our mobile industry is a classical case. For example, if you look at 2015 and 2019, 2015, Indian mobile industry had 45% share. It came down to 7%, 45 to 7. And who ate our lunch? The Chinese. Their share was 9%, they went to 68%. Why? Because we remain assemblers, SDQs, all right, importing them and putting them together. Whereas they innovated, they looked at the user and so on and so forth, etc. So there is a big penalty to be paid if we are not inventing and innovating. And that's why I'm very happy that Prime Minister talked about research and innovation being sort of the key. And he ended his speech by saying, innovate more, innovate more, innovate more. I think that has to come in this thing. And that's why I'm very happy. 5G, Mukesh Bhai on the other day said, we have 5G. We will deploy our own 5G. Why do you have to depend upon UI and so on and so forth? We can give it to the rest of the world. That's what he is talking about. That has to be the confidence. Make in India, but invent in India.
Wonderful, sir. It was a real wonderful conversation to learn from you. May I now request Anju Sharma madam to share her words followed by a talk and how we should take this thing forward.
So, good morning once again, all of you. It is a matter of great privilege for us that today we are hearing and talking to Dr. Mashrekar, whose name everybody knows, and he is like the Bhishma Pitama of innovation in India. Personally, I have always been inspired by him, and I always thought that I should I should get a lot of ideas from him about innovation, which I could implement. And like you always look for guru in various fields. So that way I've always found him as my guru in innovation. And I'm sure like me, several people would be your disciples. So I'm a very small person. But as luck would dawn on us. So when we created iHub, I approached him with the request to take the chairpersonship of advisory committee on the iHub and seek his blessings. And he kindly agreed. And his blessings have always been there since that time with us for iHub. Sir, your ideas on innovation are always new, I would say. And when we hear you at different times, different things come up. Today you gave very important points, I would say. And the most important point I liked was the purpose, perseverance, and passion. So I have seen that a large number of people in life don't have any purpose. And even after spending half of their life, they don't know what their purpose in life is. And they keep on kind of hitting their head on the wall to find out why are they here and what is their purpose in life. And if at all they find that purpose, they miss that perseverance and passion to work on it. So passion to start working on it and to give that heart and perseverance that come what may, I will stick here. Come what may, I'll work for my purpose. So this puts in a nutshell the story of life altogether, the story of success altogether. And all our innovators, I've seen, when I talk to the young innovators, they start with a lot of purpose. They start with a lot of passion. But when it comes to perseverance, somehow they get beaten by the rough winds, by the storms, and by all the rough weather that comes along when we are following our purpose with passion. So a great message for our young innovators. And again, a great message for the startups that what you are looking at in your startup is you have to see these three things, and especially scale and sustainability and of course speed. Because if you don't have speed, what you're going to start today now, and maybe you wait for 1 year, things may not be the same. Things may be very different. What you have in hand today, it may be someone else's tomorrow. Or someone else would have come up with with the idea that you're working on. And you will realize at the time when you wake up, and if you're moving very slow, that somebody has already done it. And where am I now? So speed is very important. And somehow I'm a believer in speed. So I also believe a lot in scale, and I also believe a lot in sustainability. So all my team members know that whenever I'm taking up a new thing, I believe in these three things. Don't take up anything which is not scalable and which does not have scale. Because why should we be putting in so much of effort on something that is not making a major difference and that is not going to bring in a huge difference to the society? And then it should be sustainable, like iHub. iHub, we're trying to make it sustainable over a period of time. And I'm sure within a period of 2 to 3 years, we'll be fully sustainable. We've started generating internal resources. We've started working on how to generate more and more resources, and we want to make it sustainable. And the third thing is, as you said, speed. Whatever we want to do it fast. It shouldn't be like that if we move very slow, we may not be able to reach where we want. Because it's this world, it's dynamic, it's moving very fast. Who knew that COVID will be here? Who knew the situation will change so fast? So today the opportunities are there, we have to make the best use of the opportunities. So great idea. In fact, I would also like to apprise you that now iHub has generated so much resources that we are also trying to put in together an angel investment fund, a kind of a fund, so that we can help financially also the eligible startups. So we're going to screen our startups and we're going to list them on the iHub. We will create a product and instruments so that the angel investors, the corporates, they can find startups to invest in. And iHub will be helping and participating in that process. So that the startups that require money and that require funding support, but they may not be that smart enough to reach the SoftBank or something like that and the bigger investors. So they can get help very much at home, very much in the iHub. So that's what we're looking at. And later on, of course, we can give them wings to fly so that they can move on to the higher terrains and the higher altitudes. So that's how we're looking at it. And now we're working on that. So what we're trying to do through iHub is to provide all kind of support to the startups, be it technical support in form of forming a company or whatever, the hand-holding, the capacity building support to train our faculty members and our students into what is design thinking, what is startup, and how they can move into this entire startup area, IPR, and these kind of things. And also having programs like Startup Clinic and providing them a lot of mentoring and providing them all kind of support, technical, financial, and of course, moral support also. Yeah. That don't worry if you fail, and we are there to hold your hand. So all that we're trying to do, and I look forward to continue getting your blessings all through in the iHub. And thank you very much for being here, for guiding all the entire startup ecosystem community into this process of innovation. And there cannot be anyone who can teach us more than you yourself, because you brought innovation into India at a time when people didn't know what innovation was. People didn't give much importance to innovation, and education was going on a line where it was just setting papers and taking classes, setting papers and taking examinations. Even it's taking a lot of time for me now to change the mindset. I've been here for 4 years, and I can take it to the credit of the team. It's not an individual work. My entire team is here who have tried to change the shift in higher education in Gujarat from syllabus and examination, from curriculum and examination to innovation and research. And you very rightly said, research, innovation, and education. These are three important aspects. And as I said, research is very much needed to create knowledge, the process of education to disseminate that knowledge, and innovation to put this knowledge into meaningful purposes for the betterment of the society and to generate money. So we're working on all these three sides now, and I would like to apprise you that in the last 2 years, we filed more than 680 IPRs and patents. People like my vice chancellors, like Dr. Himanshu Pandya and some others also, they are fueling innovation in a big way. I've got a lot of support from Gujarat University in taking ahead the research and innovation thought process. And other universities are also focusing a lot on research and innovation now. And especially innovation has become the buzzword for even a system like government system, the government colleges, grant in aid the government and the grant in aid colleges. They never knew what innovation was. They could never think that innovation could lead to such great results. And innovation can also be a part of education. So we're trying to change the mindset now, and I'm sure with your constant support, we'll be able to do it very soon. And very soon, we'll be able to attain great heights in research and innovation. Thank you so much, Dr. Mashulkar, for being with us.
Thank you.
Indeed privileged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam, for sharing the valuable words and laying down the roadmap. May I now request C.M. Nagarajan, Commissioner of Higher Education, to offer a formal vote of thanks for Dr. Mashulkar today.
Thank you, Hiranmai. I think it is one of the milestone sessions that will be remembered by all of us and all the viewers who have joined us. So it is my privilege to extend a very warm vote of thanks on behalf of iHub and Government of Gujarat Education Department to Dr. Arya Mashulkar, who has been our guiding light and mentor and always a source of inspiration. Today we take away 3 or 4 important lessons, especially on Gandhian engineering and less for more, less in more for more, which is like looking at the value aspect of innovation, the why, the reason of the innovation, which is more important to start with. In fact, the SSIP policy and I have consciously focused on value-based entrepreneurship, looking at valuation and other things as a byproduct. Solving the right problem at the right time, as Madam mentioned, is one of the core focus. And under her leadership, sir, I am glad to share that we are doing a mass-scale IPR program where more than 5,200 teachers, mentors across government, grant-in-aid and private universities are undergoing a 70-hour IPR program to raise the bottom line and base level knowledge of IPR across the Gujarat ecosystem. So this awareness, we believe, that is going to create a cascade and avalanche of innovative thoughts and ideas into the global framework of intellectual property. So your words on innovation and not looking at jugaad, but to look at more sustainable way of achieving innovation is only adding more icing on this cake of IP effort from us. So all these things is sitting very holistically, and the future looks very bright. And your inspirational words will keep guiding us in the time to come. And we also look forward to knocking your door and picking your brain whenever we need some help and support. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. I extend a very, very warm thanks. And thanks to Anju Sharma, madam, for always guiding and supporting us with her vision and zeal. And Dr. Professor Himanshu Pandya for doing a good role as chief mentor I have, and putting everything together with good enthusiasm. Thanks, Hiranmai, for this wonderful session. Thank you, sir. Thank you once more.